Hello Americans, welcome to our channel. This video is made by free videos from Storyblocks, and these images in video we use just for explanation and it's free use also.
What this man found in the forest was truly bizarre. A weirdly bald, tiny rabbit was hiding in one of the bushes. He couldn't make much sense of the animal's appearance. But when he brought the bunny to his local vet, he got this answer: this is definitely not a rabbit. Man thought he found a baby rabbit, but then the vet says it's definitely not. Lewis Charleston was walking through the forest near his house when all of this started. He and his K9 companion had walked this route several times before, but this particular hike would turn out to be quite different. They walked for about 30 minutes when Lewis's dog suddenly started barking. The well-trained dog was usually very quiet and hardly ever did anything unexpected. But now, the four-legged friend was uneasy. Lewis saw his dog circling a particular bush repeatedly in the distance. It was like he was trying to tell his owner something. Lewis ran over and inspected the spot where his dog sat. And that's when he saw it. Lewis spread some of the branches of the bushes and immediately figured out why his dog was acting erratic. There was an animal hiding beneath the dense leaves of this bush. But it was the weirdest creature Lewis had ever seen. "What are you?" The animal was extremely tiny, and what Lewis noticed the most was that it was pretty much hairless all over its body. The tiny creature squealed like it desperately needed attention or food. And even though Lewis wanted to help, it was a problem for the infant's mother to worry about. Lewis decided to fold the branches back together and leave the tiny creature alone, even though it screamed as Lewis and his dog walked away. They continued their forest walk and returned to the bush at the very end. And there they met with a sad surprise. The tiny animal was still there by herself. She squealed and shivered, which made her appearance a sad sight to behold. Maybe her parents died. Or maybe she was abandoned for some reason, Lewis spoke to his dog sadly. Lewis couldn't go home and leave this helpless animal behind to suffer. So, in the end, he chose to bring it with him. Once home, Lewis placed the pink-balled creature on his kitchen counter. "What are you?" he uttered, confusion riddled all over his face. It looked like a small infant rabbit, in a way. But if so, then there was something off about it. The baby was unable to open its eyes and looked hungry. It needed to regain strength, so Lewis searched for food for this weakened animal. There wasn't much. But a small bowl of milk might do the trick. At least, that was what Lewis thought. The animal, however, had other plans. It just put its front paws in the ceramic bowl without drinking anything. "I cannot help you like this," Lewis said, frustrated. He didn't know what the animal was or what it needed. Eventually, he called his local vet for help and an explanation. He discussed the situation and described the balding animal's appearance over the phone, and the vet seemed intrigued. "Could you come over? I want to look at the animal myself if that's okay with you," the vet said. Lewis agreed and drove to the veterinarian's office with the presumed baby rabbit in his passenger seat. Once there, the doctor got to work straight away. A quick inspection was done, and even though Lewis's conclusion that the infant was hungry was correct, other questions also arose within the doctor. The doctor injected the small animal with some much-needed fluids against dehydration and also proved a liquid form of substance. But when he did, his face seemed puzzled the entire time. Lewis looked at the vet's frown and stated that he believed it was a baby rabbit of some sort. "But it is the strangest one I've ever seen." The vet instantly put a halt to this hypothesis. "I get why you think that. But I can assure you, this is definitely not a rabbit." This remark surprised Lewis, who, at least, thought he figured out the animal's species. "What is it, then?" Lewis asked. The vet rolled his chair over to the nearest computer and showed the confused Lewis some pictures. With this information, he argued that this animal had no typical features a normal rabbit should have. "It has larger ears and 4 legs, but that's it. When I ran my fingers over its belly and felt the organs, some also felt out of place." Lewis listened to every word carefully and hoped that a clear answer to what this animal was would come soon. But disappointment followed. The vet explained that he had no idea what this animal was. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, which frustrated him. He then told Lewis that he was just as eager to find out as he was. "So, I have a proposition for you. The animal seems harmless and seems to like you." Lewis agreed that the animal seemed fond of him as he stroked its bare back. "Perhaps you can take it home with you and nurture it for a while. Its determining features might appear if it regains some strength and grows a bit." Lewis couldn't argue with this logic and agreed to the proposal. Lewis drove home with the animal that day and started their journey of discovery. And it would be a strange one, with many weird surprises along the way. Their mission started great, though. The mysterious rabbit-like creature ate for the first time, and as far as Lewis could tell, it slept well. Lewis's dog always slept in a separate part of the house so he could use the dog's old dog basket as a sleeping place for the hairless creature. All of these things seemed to go perfectly, and the small critter became more and more playful. But by day 3, things started to change. During that time, Lewis and the veterinarian were in constant communication. The vet was looking through old files and searching online for any kind of lead to find out what this animal was, while Lewis provided a live observation. During the day, she's fine. But the problem started last night, Lewis said. On the third night, strange things started happening. The small animal got more and more familiar with Lewis's house and was already running from side to side during the daytime. But around 2 o'clock at night, the young man suddenly woke up from a loud noise that came from downstairs. Lewis sat straight in bed and felt his heart rate go up significantly. He pushed his bed cover aside and ran down the stairs to see what was going on. At first glance, nothing seemed amiss. But when Lewis made his way over to the back door of the house, he saw that it stood wide open. The confused man knew that he had closed it before bed, just like he always did, so seeing it open like that was strange. Lewis turned his head around the corner and saw that his metal trash cans had tumbled over. "That's probably the loud noise I heard," he said calmly. The garbage bags inside the trash cans were completely ripped open, covering his entire patio with trash. "Annoying squirrels," Lewis said, irritated, before turning around and locking the door properly this time. But when he re-entered the living room, he saw that the little bald animal had left his sleeping quarters. The little creature looked up, still with its squinted eyelids, and just sat there. Did she do it? No, that wasn't possible. The animal was still half blind and way too small. She couldn't have, right? But this thought wasn't as far off as Lewis thought at that time. Because the next day, this happened. That next night, strange things again started happening. Lewis heard loud noises coming from the downstairs area once more, and when the confused homeowner got there this time, he found his house in a complete mess. There was junk everywhere, and Lewis noticed that his pantry had been plundered this time. And evidence was present all over his living room and kitchen. There were torn open food packages everywhere, and the innards of his ground coffee container were spilled all over the floor of his house. And this time, the culprit left a trail. Lewis saw that there were brown coffee footprints all over his floor. They acted like a stamp trail that ran all through his house. And some of them gathered around the sleeping area of his new bald attendee. Did you really do this? How could such an innocent-looking creature cause all this havoc? Lewis was perplexed. But the footprints did match that of the animal. Lewis called the veterinarian and shared everything he had learned up until this point. He spoke of the sharp contrast between the animal's appearance and the weird chaos she was causing. "I don't know what she is, but she's very active at night." It intrigued the vet, who asked Lewis to monitor this behavior closely. During the following weeks, Lewis watched the small animal like a hawk. He woke up every night to a mess in his house, and when that happened, he documented everything. Lewis also saw that the creature grew quite well. She wasn't just a tiny thing, he couldn't hold it in his hand anymore. The animal's weight and size increased at least quadrupled over a short period of time, and the baldness it had when he found her was slowly disappearing. The white fur grew darker, and it soon covered most of her body. She also became increasingly more playful, and Lewis noticed a bond growing between them. The only annoyance he found with the little critter was that at night, she was still quite active. Lewis would wake up to noises and find teeth marks on her furniture legs. Most of the time, there was some form of chaos down there, in the form of something being knocked over or broken. That's why, after a couple of nights of running up and down the stairs, Lewis eventually decided to keep the creature with him in his bedroom when it was time for bed. Nothing could happen with the animal alongside him and a closed bedroom door in front. At least, that was what Lewis thought. But that thought would not work out quite as planned. Because the very same night he tried out this theory, the same thing happened again. Lewis woke up to a loud bang downstairs and sat straight in bed. The confused man looked at the dog basket beside his bed, and the creature was still there. She sat up straight, just like him, and looked at her new owner with open and kind eyes. If she wasn't doing this? Then who did? Lewis swung his bedroom door open and ran downstairs. And when he reached his living quarters, he was met with a scene that left him in utter shock. Lewis was immobilized by confusion and doubt about what to do next. What he saw was something nobody could have prepared him for. His eyes were glued to the movement before him, so when the phone suddenly rang on the wall mount beside him, it gave him some initial jitters. When his heart rate lowered, the young man reached out to the wall mount and picked up the phone. It was the vet who was calling. It was the middle of the night, so the fact that he called now was a bit odd. "Hello? Can I help you?" Lewis asked. The vet sounded excited. The veterinarian stated that he was the one who could help on this occasion because he found out what kind of animal his bald-haired friend was. It's a Chinese naked wombat. They have a bit more hair when they are mature, but they are extremely rare in this region. But one thing still bothers me, Lewis. This animal hardly ever travels alone. Wombat families are tight-knit, and they always travel in packs, taking care of each other their entire lives. Lewis grinned for a moment and then took over the conversation. He said he knew and was looking at the evidence for that now. Lewis still had the phone on his ear, but his eyes were pointed toward the ground, where a group of 6 playful, hungry, and fully grown wombats were scattering through his living room. Lewis explained what he saw, and the description made the vet laugh a bit. It also amazed him. These animals were known to be quite cocky. And wombats were hardly ever found to be afraid of humans. But this erratic behavior was something even he did not expect. After that statement, Lewis heard some rattling noises coming from his bedroom. He had left the bedroom door open, and his half-covered furry companion left the bedroom because of it. She ran down the stairs and rejoined her wombat family. Lewis was in awe of the situation, but then he noticed something peculiar that immediately explained their entry to his home. Lewis followed the second small wombat into his kitchen. And there, an unexpected discovery was made. The wombat ran into his pantry and pushed a floorboard aside with its paw. And when he did, a small hole was seen leading straight beneath his house. Lewis never knew this floorboard was loose. But now he knew how this family of wombats got into his home. The truth behind this rampage mystery was finally revealed, combined with the identity of the bald animal he found. But it also came with a sad conclusion. It was illegal to own a wombat as a pet, and Lewis also did not want to keep his friend away from her family by keeping her. That's why, together with his vet, he needed to find a more permanent solution for the cute family in his house. Luckily, Lewis's vet knew someone who might be able to help in this situation. A call was made to a friend of the vet, and the next day, a trip needed to be made. The vet came to Lewis's house, who kept the family of wombats indoors by gathering them in his garage and locking the door. They drove the furry family up to a location about 30 minutes away from his home. Once there, a woman opened the gate to a large wildlife sanctuary. "Welcome, guys," she said. Lewis greeted her and introduced the wombats to their new permanent home. They seemed to adjust to the lush green environment well from the start. But when Lewis took a few steps backward toward the excitement, his former bald pet started squealing loudly, not wanting Lewis to leave her side. And that's when the sanctuary owner came up with a wonderful proposition. It wasn't something they usually did, but given the circumstances, they could make an exception. She asked Louis to come by weekly to visit his wombat friend. By doing that, she could get used to their new surroundings without feeling abandoned. And without a slither of doubt in his voice, Louis agreed instantly. It was the perfect middle ground that would satisfy all parties. He did not have to live in a trashed house anymore and could still see the animal he grew attached to regularly. And the little wombat kept her owner in a way. After about 6 months, the little bald infant had fully grown up to an adult-sized wombat. She was happy and playful and loved living in the sanctuary. Louis was happy as well. He grew to be a very well-trained sanctuary staff member and looked forward to his weekly visits every time.